Shemai, hello. My name is Sarah Lukin. I am a Lutic from the native village of Port Lions, which is located on Kodiak Island. I'm a shareholder of Afognak Native Corporation and Kodiak Incorporated, and an enrolled tribal member of the native village of Afognak and the native village of Port Lions. But I live and work in Washington, D.C. now, where I serve as the executive director of the Native American Contractors Association, or NACA. For those of you who may not be familiar with our organization, we are a national Native advocacy organization that advocates for the rights of tribes, Alaska Native corporations, and Native Hawaiian organizations in government contracting, and in particular, your participation in the SBA 8A program. Since the formation of ANCs, the Alaska Native high school graduation rate has tripled, and inflation-adjusted household income has risen by 50%, and the proportion of Alaska Native people living below the poverty line has decreased by roughly 50%. These facts prove ANCs and the 8A program are making a difference in our Native communities. Despite these gains, the issues that our Native people have to overcome is sometimes daunting, and yet I would argue we are determined. Native 8A will certainly not solve all the issues facing our villages, but it will help build economies in some of the most economically depressed areas in the United States. It will provide benefits to our Native people through much-needed dividends, scholarships, job training, cultural and social programs, and benefits to our elders. So much more needs to be done. We need more benefits for our Native people and more Native employment, more work in our Native communities, and more Native executives. To cut the program that has gotten us this far is absolutely wrong. And yet, we have faced numerous attempts at sweeping legislative reforms in the 109th, 110th, and now the 111th Congress. At the same time, we've had to deal with several regulatory issues as individual agencies like the Air Force and Navy began imposing their own limitations on Native 8A. The White House is urging more competition in contracting, and agencies are shying away from Native 8A because they don't want the scrutiny, and they don't want to face a congressional hearing, and they certainly don't want to face a call from a reporter. Sadly, a recent Washington Post series on ANCs and 8A was weak on substance and short on facts. It irresponsibly led readers to believe the broad ANC community is fraught with abuse and opposes efforts to strengthen ANC accountability in the 8A program. Just the opposite is true. NACA has joined with other Native American organizations such as NCAI and the National Center for American Indian Enterprise Development in calling for increased compliancy, transparency, and education of Native boards to closely monitor 8A activities. However, NACA doesn't agree with nonsensical reforms designed to address perceptions and not reality. Following the publication of the Washington Post series, Senator McCaskill announced she intends to introduce legislation to kill Native 8A. Such legislation is absurd and unnecessary. In fact, new regulations and legislative provisions already in motion will substantially improve oversight of Native 8A. New SBA proposed rules will establish a system to report benefits provided to the Native community from 8A. These rules will also impose new financial reporting for Native 8A firms, create additional oversight by the SBA and agencies, and place new restrictions on Native 8As. In addition, as Jackie mentioned, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2010 includes a provision called Section 811, which requires agencies to go through a formal justification and approval process for any sole source award to a Native 8A over $20 million. We just completed tribal consultations on this provision, and we expect it will be implemented in the next several months. It would be irresponsible for Congress to reform Native 8A without first allowing these substantial regulatory and legislative changes to be implemented. Congress must not allow the destruction of Native 8A and must demonstrate through action that it stands up in support of our Native communities and programs like 8A that promote economic self-sufficiency for America's Indigenous people. Participation by ANCs, tribes, and Native Hawaiian organizations in the 8A program did not occur on a whim. We hold special rights under the 8A program based on federal Indian policy and the federal government's obligation to Native people. If sweeping restrictions are implemented, what will be provided to Alaskan Natives and American Indian people in exchange for Native 8A? Under the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, Alaska Natives gave up 88% of our traditional lands, worth trillions of dollars. What more must we surrender at the whims of a few misguided members of Congress? As Jackie noted, Senator McCaskill recently stated in a Washington Post article that Alaska Native people, excuse me, you did not note this. I better take that back. She didn't say that. I'm going to say it, though. Senator McCaskill recently stated in a Washington Post article that Alaska Native people should be paid directly by the government and excluded from participation in government contracting. This suggests that Senator McCaskill would prefer America's Indigenous people, remain in a cycle of poverty attached to the welfare system. As an Alaska Native child who knew all too well the pain and humiliation of poverty and dependence on welfare programs, I assure you, our people don't need a handout. We need the opportunity to contribute to our nation's economy and experience our share of the American dream. ANC, tribal, and Native Hawaiian organization 8A sole source contracts represent 0.8% of the federal contracting pie. If the debate is concerned about sole source contracting, the discussion must include the 99% of sole source contracts that are awarded to non-Native companies. These include contracts such as the Missouri-based Boeing, which recently announced it had received an almost $12 billion sole source award. That's twice the amount that our Native people received combined in 2007. The issues with government contracting are universal. The search for solutions should be comprehensive and not disproportionately focused on Native 8A. We have many supporters in Congress from both parties who respect the special trust relationship between Native people and the federal government. Native 8As are building our coalition of supporters on Capitol Hill and within agencies and the White House. We are focused on educating members of Congress, the press, and the general public. And I'll note for you, to this end, Native 8A Works will be interviewing shareholders to capture positive shareholder success stories, and they're going to be right over here in the Northern Lights 1 room. So from 10 to noon today. So if you have a great story, please go and share it with them. As we enter the 112th Congress, remember that although we face significant challenges, we are stronger than ever. More and more tribes, ANCs, and Native Hawaiians are entering the 8A program, reaping success and bringing benefits back to their Native communities. Combined, Native 8As have operations in all 50 states. Each of those states should be voting in support for Native 8A and socioeconomic self-sufficiency for our Native communities. NACA works closely with national, regional, statewide, and individual Native organizations. We have been and will continue to hold a series of meetings across the nation with Native leadership to develop ways to improve the 8A program. I hope that every tribal and ANC 8A here today will join us and be part of the solution. The 8A program of tomorrow may not be the 8A program of today, but if we can unite and stay united, we can develop meaningful solutions to ensure a healthy, vibrant program for generations to come. Koyana Sinak, thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry for... Oh, that's right. Great.